The courtroom isn't thrown into chaos when Meri slides the envelope across the table. No gasp, no outburst, no interruption. It's more like the silence deepens, the kind of silence that lets every person in the room know they've passed a point of no return. The judge peers down at the envelope, then up at Meri, as if he's trying to read her expression, see if it's hope or conviction. Meri freezes in place, shoulders squared, eyes unwavering. This isn't acting on instinct. This is preparation. Kody's response comes a beat later. His body freezes, not in the manner of a man wounded, but of a man who has been surprised. He shifts his gaze towards Robyn out of instinct alone. Robyn doesn't turn back. Her gaze is set on something ahead. Her lips are parted, as if expecting something to be placed in her mouth. Her fists are clasped tightly in her lap. Her knuckles are chalk white. The lawyer adjusts his robe. "Ms. Brown, we shall deal with this in turn. However, for now, we shall go on with laying down the foundation for this case." Meri gives a single nod. She expected as much. This isn't about compelling answers. This is about establishing a tone. For it had been her role within this family for years to remain quiet, to remain patient, to remain loyal, even when that loyalty cost her everything. The courtroom slowly fills as the proceedings continue. Reporters, spare witnesses, those who had known the family in passing, could never have imagined they'd find themselves witnessing the breakdown of their own psyches at the hands of objective testimony. The stench of aged paper and disinfectant clings to the atmosphere. The fluorescent lights cast an unforgiving glow. Meri's lawyer stands up and begins to outline the evidence. Her voice is calm and deliberate, and she is careful not to be theatrical. Clearly, this isn't about drama. It's about making the point that trust had been created and that it had been quietly undermined. She speaks of shared finances, of the promise of equality, of verbal contracts that counted as a verbal contract within the family dynamic, until the collector of responsibilities arrived. With each passing paragraph, the experiences of Meri's life unravel before her. Moments that seemed odd, moments that lacked substance, moments she questioned herself for not being sufficiently flexible. Across the room, Kody is listening with a smooth expression. Arms crossed, head cocked. The same pose he has placed during interviews that he feels have misconstrued him. Though a different energy is present with him now. His foot is tapping. Once, again. The judge is intently listening, taking occasional notes. Next, the first document appears. It is, on the face of it, a very boring thing. A timeline of financial support. No emotion involved, simply figures and dates. However, as it is projected onto the screen, things begin to change. Trends begin to appear. Times throughout which Meri has contributed more than she has received. Times throughout which money has flowed into and away from her account unseen, and explanations given later, upon reflection, that don't quite ring true. A strange calm settles over Meri. This is what it feels like to have clarity. Not vindication, not validation or triumph, but relief that simply knowing the truth means that it doesn't need to fight. Kody's lawyer objects to the evidence being taken that way. But in this case, the judge shows no concern for Miller's intent and rules that whatever meaning Miller meant to assign to it in his own testimony is to be ignored, and that in spite of his objections, his own evidence will enter. Robyn, her mom, urges gently, "Come and sit with us." "Just a minute," she says. "I want to see what he's talking about." But she is caught in the very conversation she is watching. Her mind is reeling from the implications of what she is hearing. Her hands shake as she searches her purse for a tissue. She reaches up and touches. "Of course," continues the lawyer, now explaining decisions that were presented as family decisions but made by a select group of people. Property decisions, assignments. Oral contracts that were never put down on paper, except now, in some way, they are. These conversations, Meri recalls. Kitchen tables, listening to Kody speak of the bigger picture. Being assured that sacrifices would translate to security down the line. She had believed him, yes, simply because it was easier to believe than to doubt, and to doubt carried its own price tag. A witness is summoned. A former family advisor, neutral, professional, emotionally non-aligned. They say their words with a definable consideration of how they might impact others. They agree with the document's implications. Meri's perception of her position in the family wasn't the same thing as how the decisions were actually made. Kody takes a sharp breath. "That's your opinion," he says. The witness is looking at him calmly. "It's my assessment based on records," he says. The judge holds up his hand, and all commentary stops. Meri keeps her eyes straight ahead. She does not look at Kody, not because she's afraid of his reaction, but because she doesn't need it anymore. This isn't about swinging his heart to agree with her. It's about speaking truth in a place where truth counts. With time, the emotional undertone becomes stronger, not in raised voices or in tears, but in self-control. The kind that conveys everyone is stifling something even bigger, something even heavier. Robyn's turn comes sooner than expected. She isn't called as a witness yet, but her name arises, repeatedly, with explanations, with footnotes, with rationalizations of choices that disproportionately helped people like her. Each one directs the judge's attention to her, even if she isn't talking. She adjusts her seat, smooths her skirt, trying to compose herself. This is definitely not what she had planned to occur. This should have been a miscommunication, a revelation, but not exposure. Meri looks back once. Only once. Their eyes lock. Robyn seems for a fleeting instant as if she would like to speak up, to explain, to temper what is taking place. The moment passes. The words remain locked where they always have, behind loyalty to a tale that is rapidly unwinding itself. The judge asks for a brief recess. People are standing. Chairs scrape against the floor. Kody quickly rises and backs away, jaw clenched, moving like a man struggling to again control a situation which has escaped him. Robyn lingers behind, head down. Meri remains seated. She breathes out, not in relief, but in recognition. For the first time in her life, she has not been asked to sacrifice her truth for the sake of peace. For the first time, the burden that has been hers to bear is finally being shouldered by others. When court resumes, notice that the judge's attitude has changed. He's more concentrated now, less tolerant of evasion. He's looking at Meri directly. "Ms. Brown," he states, "you've indicated there are additional materials you plan on introducing." "Yes," Meri answers, "when the time is right." The judge nodded. "We'll get there." And everyone in the room realizes it. The feeling of things heading toward them, inevitably, because whatever is inside that envelope didn't come from anger. It came from certainty. The courtroom falls back into its rigid calm as the second session begins, but the dynamics have changed. What seemed like procedure is now suddenly personal. Heads are held forward in their seats. No one is checking his or her phone. No one is whispering. Whatever this thing is turning into, everyone knows it is anything but an ordinary lawsuit. The first thing that Meri notices is how the judge grips his pen. He no longer turns it around his finger. He no longer looks at the clock. He is now completely tuned in, and that in itself reveals something important to her. She did not make a mistake coming here. Kody sits down with a lot less confidence than before. His shoulders are tense, his face guarded, and for the first time, a hint of irritation peeks out from under the smooth mask. This is the face he wears when things are getting out of his control, and he isn't quite sure where to point the finger. Robyn sits beside him, closer than she did yesterday. Her hand wavers near his arm but does not make contact with it, as if even the comfort of touch is a danger to her now. Her eyes flick to and from the gallery, to and from the judge, to her lap. She appears smaller today, less sure of herself, less safe. The judge calls the court to order and then turns to Meri's lawyer. You may proceed with your next witness. There's no build-up involved this time. Christine Brown, the attorney says. Christine stands up, smoothing her palms against her skirt as if centering herself. She doesn't glance at Kody as she heads towards the stand. Nor does she glance at Robyn. Her eyes remain fixed, straight ahead, on her oath and the truth she is ready to reveal. As she is sworn in, the lawyer begins delicately. Questions about the structure of her family, about how decisions were to be reached. Christine responds directly, thoughtfully, her tone calm but tight, as if she is repressing something. Then come the questions. She asks about exclusion, about talks that took place in Meri's absence, about instances where Meri was confused and/or worried, only to be labeled difficult. Christine pauses. She clenches her jaw. It happened more than people want to admit, she says quietly. It wasn't an accident. Kody changes gears abruptly. That's not true, he murmurs. Christine turns to him at last. Her eyes are calm, but there is something immovable in them now. It is, she says, and you know it. The room falls silent. Christine begins to tell the story of the family meetings and the changes that happened to them when Robyn came into the family. About the centralization of decision-making. About the judgment of those who dared to question them. About watching Meri lose her stature, not very loudly, not very dramatically, but incrementally over the years, until silence became her place. She was told she had to be more supportive, Christine says, but nobody ever asked what that meant from her point of view. Meri holds her head up, keeping her eyes straight ahead, though her chest constricts in pain. To hear the words aloud stings her more than she thought it would. It hurts, even when it's confirmed. Christine leaves the witness stand, and the significance of her testimony trails after her like the smell of smoke. Then Janelle is called. Her method was different. Less emotional, more specific. She spoke of money, of contributions, of patterns that didn't add up right. She confesses to having doubted in her own way, in her own manner of non-confrontation. I picked the peace over the confrontation, Janelle says, and I regret that. Kody grits his jaw. This is not how he planned this process to go down. This is not what it's supposed to look like when you're the one who has been leading the family all these years. The judge nods slowly as she listens intently to every word. Robyn's name arises again, and again, and again. At last her lawyer also rises. Your Honor, may my client address the court. There is a ripple effect in the room. Robyn goes to testify, wiping her eyes before she even takes a seat. She's shaken as she describes her misunderstanding, her trust in Kody, her desire for no one to feel left out. She sets up a portrayal of herself that is one of being overwhelmed and emotional, caught up in a situation that is somehow not of her choice. The judge listens, but this time he asks questions. Did you gain financially more than Ms. Brown? I don't know, Robyn answers quietly. You don't know? I didn't handle the finances. Did you ever wonder why some families had more stability than others? Robyn pauses. I trusted my husband. Kody is in strong agreement and quickly adds, that was my responsibility. The judge raises his hand. You'll have your turn. The words of Robyn trail off, leaving a wavering vocal quality, and when she vacates the stage, she looks relieved. It's as if she feels that making that scene has accomplished what she set out to do. There's, however, something doesn't quite feel right. The judge does not proceed immediately. He looks down at his papers and then back up. We will revisit parts of that testifying later, he says. Robyn's relief dissipates. Your Honor, we'd like to introduce corroborating documentation regarding financial distribution. Meri's lawyer appears for the third time. The screens come to life. The charts materialize. The timelines synchronize. In this case, there's nothing to interpret. What benefits Robyn, what loss Meri faces, but the tale of justice unraveling before its own eyes. Kody leans forward, whispering in confidentiality to his lawyer. His composed aura gives way to frustration now. This conversation ceases to be a matter of perception. It turns out to be an exercise in exposure. The judge also declares another recess, but no one is in a relaxing mood. As the family stands up, Meri finally turns to look at Kody. He opens his mouth as if to say something. To explain perhaps, or maybe even to defend. But the words fail him. There is a moment when nothing he has to say can change things. Meri steps back. Since truth itself does not require consent. As the judge exits, he pauses, his eyes momentarily resting upon the sealed envelope lying on the evidence table, even as he leaves the courtroom. He does not touch it. He does not even mention it. However, everyone does. Now the courtroom doesn't feel impartial. It feels like it's charged, like every single person in the room knows they are standing at the precipice of something irreparable. The sealed DNA envelope remains undisturbed on the evidence table, but its presence resonates louder. It doesn't have to be cracked open yet to overbear the space. It can be sensed by every single person in the room. Meri observes that people admire it when they believe that no one is watching them. The Lord of the Rings is, Robyn can't help but look at it, then away again, as if simply looking at it could bring about what is to follow. What happens next? Kara asks Robyn, who, the judge enters, look grim, patience wearing ever thinner. This is no longer a dispute among members of a family, couched in legalese. This is a trial of credibility, and credibility, once shattered, never regains its pristine purity. Call your next witness, says the judge. The attorney for Meri does not hesitate. We call Dr. Elaine Porter. A murmur is heard in the court. Dr. Porter comes in with a confidence that isn't emotional or defensive. It is a professional confidence. She knows what she is doing. She doesn't look at Kody or Robyn as she takes the stand. She looks at the judge, at the oath, at the responsibility. She is sworn in and instantly recognized as a genetic expert with many years of experience. Her voice is calm, precise. A voice that does not embellish, does not guess, does not qualify the unpleasant facts. The defense attorney is slow to start, building foundations. What can and cannot be determined by DNA analysis? How accuracy is measured? The relevance of chain of custody issues. Everything is explained in simple terms by Dr. Porter. No theatrics, no technical terms. The plain truth. Then the question that everyone has been bracing for finally arrives. Dr. Porter, the attorney asks, were you asked to examine the results of DNA tests pertinent to the case? Yes, she responds. Kody's stance hardens. Robyn's hand holds the edge of the bench. Meri is not even stirring. Yes, continues Dr. Porter. And I verified both the testing process and the results independently. The judge slightly leans forward. Dr. Porter describes the procedures of collecting the samples, the procedures of obtaining the consents. All the objections that can be considered will be brought up even before they can be made. Then she pauses. But this pause does more harm than any number of words ever could. Kody's lawyer suddenly stands up. Your Honor, before we can continue further, I'd like to object to. Overruled, says the judge, not unkindly, but firmly. The witness may continue. Dr. Porter turns a page in her folder. The findings, she states gingerly, suggest that the person, who is thought to be biologically related, on the basis of the traditional family story, is not genetically related in the way that has been publicly reported. The words do not explode. They sink. A sharp intake of breath pierces the silence. Robyn, her face saps color, so quickly, it can't help being noticed. She blinks quickly, shaking her head ever so slightly, as if the world has tilted on its axis, and she is trying to tell herself it hasn't. Kody freezes. Not anger, not outrage. Shock. The kind that comes when a man realizes the story he's been defending might not even be his to defend. The judge holds up a hand as murmurs begin to build. Order. To clarify, this does not mean that there was wrongdoing by default, continues Dr. Porter calmly. What it does mean, though, is that it contradicts previous assertions of claim. Meri finally lets out a, not relief, release. Years of doubt, years of silence, years of swallowing hard because saying something aloud made me feel disloyal. It all has meaning now. Kody rises. Your Honor, he speaks, his voice straining. This is impossible. I was told. The judge cuts him off. You'll have a chance to respond. Sit down. Kody hesitates, then very slowly sits down, fists clasped, as if holding on to something sliding away to nothing. Meri's lawyer asks the question nobody wants to hear. Dr. Porter, based on your review, would it have been possible for these results to be available sooner? Yes, Dr. Porter responds. If testing had been done at any point in the past. Robyn's lawyer stands up. Objection. The judge looks at Robyn directly, then at the attorney. Overruled. Which means any claims that were made prior to testing were assumptions rather than confirmations, continues Dr. Porter. Assum. The word reverberates. Kody turns very slowly to Robyn. She won't look him in the eye. Her hands shake now, not tremble, but shake. Her tears are forming, but they aren't falling. This isn't an outpouring of emotion. This is fear. The judge calls a brief recess. People stand. But nobody speaks. Kody immediately turns to Robyn, as soon as they are out of earshot of the bench. His words are low and urgent. What's she talking about? He asks. Did you know? Robyn shakes her head hastily. I didn't lie, she whispers. I believed. But did you know? Kody pressures. She doesn't answer. And this silence speaks louder than any confession could ever do. Across the room, Meri is watching, not with satisfaction, with clarity. Because this wasn't about revenge, not ever. It was about being honest, even when honesty breaks things apart. Court resumes. Note the sterner look on the face of the judge. We are moving beyond hypotheticals, says the judge firmly. The actions, not the assumptions, will be the basis of responsibility according to this court. A lawyer representing Meri gets up again. Your Honor, he repeats. At the present moment, in respect of the above-mentioned criminal case, we would like to. The envelope is finally opened. The clerk takes out the papers very carefully, as if they could burst into flames at any minute. The judge examines them in silence. His jaw clenches. He looks up. These findings are very important, he says seriously. They also pose very disturbing questions about representation, trust, and accountability in this family structure. Robyn has a sob that this time she can't control. Kody doesn't budge. He looks small. The judge presses on. This court will recess until tomorrow. Further testimony will be required. While people get up, Meri sits. She does not have to flee from this moment. She has endured all these years of uncertainty in order to arrive at this point. He stops near her. Meri, he says softly, almost begging. I didn't know. She looks up at him calmly. That's the problem, she says. In the corner of the room, Robyn watches, streaming with tears now. Her neatly constructed tale tumbling down before the onslaught of evidence. She cannot cry away. Because when court resumes, this won't be about what anyone believed anymore. He explains that when court resumes and new, it will all boil down to who spoke the truth and who actually profited from the lie, with a sense of tension so thick you could feel its weight. The kind that weighs shoulders down and makes breathing feel deliberate. The DNA results are no longer just a looming threat. They are now officially part of the record. They exist. They can't be undone. And everyone in the courtroom knows the story has crossed a line it can never step back over. Kody arrives late. Not dramatically late, just enough to be noticed. His hair is less controlled today, his expression tighter, more guarded. He takes a seat without looking at anyone, jaw clenched, eyes fixed straight ahead. There is little resemblance to the man who arrived, believing he could explain his way out of anything. Behind him, Robyn follows, her eyes red, her face blotchy. She sits down slowly, carefully, like every movement requires effort. Gone is the confidence she once wore like armor. In its place, something fragile and exposed. Meri continues to watch them silently. She feels something unexpected, not triumph, not satisfaction, but distance. Emotional distance. The kind that comes when you finally stop hoping someone will become who you needed them to be. The judge enters, and the room snaps to attention. "We will proceed," he says, voice firm and controlled. Responsibility and intent, the focus of this session. Those two words land hard. Responsibility, intent, not errors, not miscommunications. Kody's attorney rises first now, clearly on a new strategy track. The tone is defensive now, urgent. He says Kody acted in good faith, that he relied upon information given to him, that any harm caused was unintentional. Kody nods along, grip on the edge of the table tightening. Then the attorney for Meri stands up. And everything changes. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't dramatize. She simply walks the court through a timeline, not of money, not of DNA, but of decisions. Who spoke? Who stayed silent? Who benefited? And who was told to wait? She describes moments where Meri asked direct questions and received vague answers, where concern was reframed as disloyalty, where transparency was promised and quietly withheld. This, she says calmly, is not ignorance. This is convenience. Kody lets out a sharp breath. That's not fair. The judge turns to him. You'll speak when it's your turn. The next witness is called, a financial analyst who reviewed years of family records. Their testimony is dry, factual, devastating, in its simplicity. The analyst explains how resources flowed consistently towards certain households, how requests for clarity were documented, how patterns repeat when behavior is intentional. Robyn stares directly. This is to place a straightforward question before the analyst. Was this distribution fair? No, says the analyst, it was not. That adjective, fair, hangs in the air. Robyn's attorney objects, but the judge waves it off. The witness has answered. Meri shuts her eyes for a moment. Not because it hurts either. It is because it confirms. Then, the moment no one expected so soon arrived. The judge turns to Kody. Mr. Brown, you may take the stand. The room ruffles with murmurs. Kody rises slowly. This isn't the controlled patriarch. This is a man exposed. He's sworn in, takes his seat, and abruptly the space around him feels smaller. He begins confidently enough. Talks about leadership, about pressure, about doing his best to balance competing needs. Then the questions sharpen. Did you ever withhold information from Ms. Brown? No. Did you ever divert supplies without asking her permission? I don't remember. Did you ever have a favorite household over another? Kody pauses, then says, I chose stability. The judge is watching closely. And who defined what stability meant? Asked the attorney. Silence. Kody swallows. I did. The attorney continues. And when Ms. Brown expressed confusion or concern, how did you respond? Kody shifts. I told her to trust the process, even when the process excluded her. Kody's voice tightens. I didn't see it that way at the time. But you see it now? Another pause. Yeah, he says softly. That admission ripples outward. Not dramatic, not explosive, but irreversible. Robyn stares at him, her eyes wide. Then she gets called. Robyn's testimony is raw now, less polished. Through tears, she talks about fear, wanting security, and the belief that this structure would protect everyone. She insists she never meant to hurt Meri. But did you benefit? The attorney asks softly. Robyn nods, barely. Yes. And did you ever question why? Robyn opens her mouth, then closes it. I didn't want to know, she confesses. The room quiets down. The judge leans back, steepling his fingers. He doesn't look angry. He looks disappointed. Choosing not to know, he says slowly, is still a choice. That sentence hits heavier than any accusation so far. The court takes a brief recess. Kody is alone in the hallway, staring at the floor. Robyn sits on a bench and cries. Nobody hurries to comfort her. Nobody needs to say a word. Meri stands by the window. For years, she had harbored the thought that speaking out would tear the family apart. Now she realizes silence has long had. When court is back in session, the judge speaks to the room. This court has heard enough to determine that harm occurred, not accidentally, not incidentally, but through sustained patterns of behavior. Kody looks up sharply. Robyn freezes. The judge continues. The question now is consequence. The word echoes. Result. The judge calls it a day, but nobody rises immediately. Kody looks over at Meri, finally, not in anger, with regret. But regret, she knows now, is not repair. As she gathers up her things, she feels lighter. Not because the balance of justice has been served, but because it's finally in motion. And as the courtroom empties, one realization finally sinks in for all those left behind. Begins with no ceremony, and somehow that makes it even worse. No entrance, no nerves. Just the realization that whatever happens today will not be reversed tomorrow. The lights in the courtroom seem brighter, the air cooler, as if the very environment has also ceased to be lenient. Meri comes first. She takes her seat slowly, purposefully, like a person who finally realizes the importance of standing up for herself. Now she doesn't have to practice her answers to questions. Now she doesn't have to prepare herself for rejection. Now she is there, and that makes all the difference. Kody walks in. Now he's tired. Not the kind of tired he's had to manufacture in interviews, but the kind of tired that comes after explanations are of no use anymore. He's sitting, hands are folded, and he's gazing at the table in front of him, as if the furniture could provide him with some kind of direction. It doesn't. Robyn brings up the rear. Her eyes are puffed up. She moves with care. This time, she picks a seat a little farther from Kody. Not distant enough to mean that she's moving away from him, but distant enough to mean that she's distancing herself. This distance means more than all the statements she has given before. The judge arrives and does not tarry. Today, he says matter-of-factly, this court will hear closing statements and consider remedies. Remedies. It sounds almost clinical, but everyone in this room knows there isn't any cure for years wasted in silence. The first is the attorney of Meri. She doesn't retell the whole story. She doesn't sensationalize the suffering. And she doesn't pick one thing. It's the pattern of exclusion, privilege, and avoidance. She talks about trust not as a feeling, but as an act of responsibility. The misuse of power not as an act of malice, but an act of harm. Meri Brown, she says matter-of-factly, was not asking to be given special treatment. She was asking for equal treatment, and told, repeatedly, that equal treatment equals silence. Meri swallows. This is very telling. The attorney concludes with what Meri is asking for. Not revenge, not punishment, but acknowledgement, restitution, and accountability. A recognition that what occurred was not something that occurred in their imagination, but that it happened. Next, Kody's lawyer stands up. His tone has changed. It is not so defensive, so much more resigned. He talks about pressure, about complexity, about emotional storm systems. He says mistakes have been made, not mean-spirited ones. Kody nods slightly. But when the attorney finishes, the judge does not seem to be satisfied yet. Then the next attorney, Robyn, gets the chance to speak, and he does so relying heavily on emotion. Fear, vulnerability. The notion that Robyn was acting from the need to survive, not to strategize. That Kody was someone she trusted implicitly, maybe to the point of trusting him entirely. The judge listens. Then he turns to Robyn. Mrs. Brown, he asks, do you believe trust absolves responsibility? Robyn freezes. She opens her mouth, shuts it, and finally shakes her head. No, she whispers. And now, he continues. Kody looks at her, surprised, not mad, not betrayed, just surprised. Like he didn't expect her to say that part out loud. The judge nods once. Thank you, and then he turns to Meri. Brown, he says, you may address the court. Meri stands up. She isn't gripping the podium. She isn't leaning on it for support. She speaks in a calm voice that is clear and steady. For a long time, she says, I thought that loving this family was supposed to mean tolerating confusion. I thought that loyalty was supposed to mean avoiding questions. And that if I did ask questions, I was supposed to wait, be patient, trust. She pauses. I trusted until there was nothing left of me to give. Kody closes his eyes. Robyn looks down. I'm not here because I hate anyone. I'm here because I finally stopped hating myself for knowing something was wrong, Meri adds. Her words are not loud. They don't have to. The judge listens intently, hands clasped together, eyes fixed. When Meri has finished, he doesn't immediately respond. He takes a deep breath. It's the type of breath judges often take when it goes beyond an office decision. Then he speaks. This court finds, he says slowly, that Ms. Brown was subjected to sustained inequity, exclusion, and misrepresentation. Kody stiffens. Robyn's breath catches. Not in one action, but in a pattern. And in patterns, responsibility is indicated, says the judge. Meri senses something change within her chest. Not joy, not triumph, but relief. The court orders restitution, the judge explains calmly. Corrections in finances. Official admissions. Limits are set. Responsibility noted. Kody nods slowly. Robyn starts crying quietly, her shoulders shaking as she gives up trying to conceal it. The judge is finished and looks up. This court cannot repair what was broken emotionally, but it can recognize what was broken structurally. He adjourns. The gavel falls gently. No cheering. Gasps. Just the quiet finality of something ending, just as it should. People get up. Kody sits there for a moment, just staring straight ahead. He then gets up and turns to Meri. I'm sorry, he says quietly, not defensively, not apologetically, as if it was. Meri looks at him for a long moment. I know, she says, but knowing doesn't change what happened. Robyn draws closer reluctantly. Meri, she says through her tears. I never wanted this. Meri nods in agreement. I know. But wanting something doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't cost someone else. Robyn stops. There is nothing further to say. As they depart the courtroom individually, not as a family or a unit, it becomes evident that this was not the end of the sister wives' story. It marked the end of pretending that every one of them was standing on equal ground. Meri goes outside, the sun's rays on her face for the first time all day. She takes a deep breath, not in celebration of all that's now made right, but for having spoken the truth without waiting for permission.